Okay, we should be live. Let's double check here. Twitch.tv. Yeah, okay, welcome to Fireside Chat number 282. Probably a decent sized fireside here, and I should make sure I make posted announcements here. Every time I make the post, it is a different preview on Discord. It's very interesting. Yeah, so the big news obviously is we are coming up on March 15th. In fact, we're 8 days away. So next Friday is going to be the rollout of our, what I'm probably going to call the, now I forgot what I was going to say. It was platoon enhancement? Platoon sorting? Something like that. We'll see. But what matters is not the name, but rather what we're doing, which is putting everyone in a platoon. And I will say, for people who have seen the word platoon before, they are going to work a bit differently. So what we've had for the last few years is platoons. The name has been pretty deceptive because really all they are is just one or two people kind of running things for us on the game, kind of hosting events, keeping track of who's playing the game, that kind of thing. That's going to keep going, but what we're actually doing is we're basically going to stick everybody into a platoon based on what they seem to play the most, including we have an auxiliary platoon called Thor's Hammer, which old school WA members will remember the name, but this time it's going to be kind of our general all-purpose platoon, the way Thor's Hammer was the all-purpose StarCraft map, general StarCraft map platoon in the past. So people who kind of play a game that doesn't have a platoon, or they kind of play a lot of games, or just generally for whatever reason their best fit is just sort of miscellaneous, they will be in Thor's Hammer. So it will probably be our biggest platoon, the way we've got it right now. It's pretty close, but I think it does have the most people by a little bit. And Basketball is going to be the one in charge of that. We're still finalizing a couple little details, but that's the big thing, is everyone's going to be in a platoon. So then the question, of course, looms, what does that actually mean? Not too much for the average member. The main thing it's going to change is when you post your roll call, you're going to have to post what platoon you're in as well. And it doesn't really affect anything except for, whereas before we were just kind of one giant clan with, you know, maybe somebody reviewing everyone, or maybe, you know, an officer trainee or something would hop on and do the review of the roster or all that, with the idea being that it was impartial, which I think is a fair motive, but I think we're looking to try to expand further. I think we've had a lot of activity and a lot of awesome stuff happening lately. A lot of strong up-and-coming officers, people kind of in the middle rungs, newish members, I suppose I would say. And yeah, all of our training and certification, everything has been going awesome. So thank you everyone for helping out with that. And everyone, there's been a lot of communication, great communication, quick communication as far as preparing for the platoon rollout as that March 15th date approaches. So thank you everyone for that. That's been awesome. We're really, I mean, I was honestly worried about delaying it, but I think that right now it's looking like we are 100% good to go, which is great. But kind of went on a tangent, but what does it actually mean for the average member? Yeah, so one, you're going to have to put your platoon in your roll call. And two, whereas before we were just one hole, now the person in charge of your platoon will kind of be your point person if you have any questions, if you need help. They will also be kind of keeping track of you. And instead of somebody having to keep track of, you know, 50, 100 people, whatever, we'll just have platoon leaders keeping track of probably something like 5 to 10 people. It varies from platoon to platoon as far as what size each platoon is. And maybe some of them will get big enough that they have to be split into multiple platoons and so on, but that would be a good problem to have. But basically, you'll just have that kind of point person, and post March 15th, whoever it is should introduce themselves to you, but they'll be kind of letting you know what platoon you're in. You might get a message or a ping of them introducing themselves and kind of letting you know. Of course, you can switch platoons, whereas before, because platoons kind of locked you into a specific private channel that you had access to, they kind of became these click sort of thing where it would almost be awkward to request a transfer, and it's like, okay, what if my lieutenant or platoon leader doesn't approve? That's kind of awkward. So We still are requiring the approval of platoon leaders, but the system now generally is going to be that you just submit a support ticket in our help channel. So what that does is it opens up a private temporary channel that all the admiralty can see and all the platoon leaders can see. So the idea is you just open that up and say, hey, I want to switch to this platoon, and everyone who could possibly want to know about this change or would need to know about it will immediately know, and somebody can just give it the stamp of approval pretty quick, because there's a lot of moderators that can see it, so somebody will be online pretty quick after you submit it, and we can get that solved. So makes it hopefully a pretty quick and painless process, as opposed to maybe before. I mean, way back in the day, having to send a forum message to somebody and then hoping they get back to you in the next week. No more of that. So the idea is then that you can freely transfer between platoons. You can't just press a button and switch your role the way you would with the game roles, but it shouldn't be that much tougher than that, because the goal of the platoons is just to make our jobs easier as far as keeping track of people, running stuff, and also to just put more power in the hands of kind of the boots on the ground officers leading the platoons, and also to kind of help out individual members, because now it's really clear who your person is to go to, whereas before the chain of command was just like really murky. As far as, I mean, you knew, okay, there's the fleet admiral, there's the admiral, there's the vice admiral, and so on, but at some point it just becomes a big ladder without any actual individual platoons or any structure, like a kind of a tree, if you will, the way the lineage charts kind of look. So none of that was in existence the last couple of years, really just because we kind of felt like we couldn't really put all of our efforts into an individual game or something like that, or individual games. We didn't feel like we had the manpower to do that, and I think now we really do. We have a lot of people running platoons and that want to give it a shot, and we're encouraging that too. You can start your own platoon. You can add the number of platoons we have. The guy to talk to for that is Kusiag, but we've had a number of new platoons spring up, which is awesome. We've got new Guilty Gear platoon. Command and Conquer is back. Wild Rift platoon is finally here. We may even have one or two more. We'll see. But for now, we've got a lot. The Genshin Impact platoon has taken on Honkai Star Rail as well. So those are both going to be kind of one platoon, kind of the Hoyoverse platoon, if you will. So, yeah, I think I feel pretty optimistic about it, and the hope is that, because now you're part of this group, basically, where you'll have somebody just kind of keeping an eye on your small group. They'll be the person reaching out to you, if you forget roll call or something like that. We've had a lot of cases of people who just missed roll call because they just forgot about it or didn't see the ping. But if they've got kind of an officer or a platoon leader kind of looking out for them, that can remind them to post it. It just makes it easier. And that's something we sort of dabbled in a while ago when we had like somebody assigned to each house, but that system sort of broke down, and we wind up just having Ulf doing everything. So it wasn't really too feasible to remind people about roll call, and even if it was, it's not feasible for one guy to maintain those kind of connections and rapport with every single person in the clan consistently. It would be ridiculous to ask that. So the hope is that platoon leaders will have the opportunity to do that a bit more, and they'll kind of be also able to do more because they can promote and demote people now. So basically, platoon leaders can feel a bit more powerful and confident knowing that we have put responsibility and power in their hands to just kind of go out there and do their thing. And which is really how it was in WA a long time ago. So while it's a bit slightly different in that, if you're in a platoon, you're going to have a specific role for that platoon, and you're going to have to put the platoon name in your roll call, and you'll kind of know, you'll have, the person reaching out to you saying, hey, I'm the guy here. You're not really locked into anything the way with warbands were, going back, 4 to 6 years ago. Actually, we're going to be rolling it out March 15th, which is actually the 6-year anniversary of warbands rolling out and the start of the first Viking era. We're not doing a new era for this because really this is more 4th Fleet than the 4th Fleet era has been to this point. So I think calling it the 5th Fleet wouldn't make that much sense because it isn't a huge change. And calling it an empire wouldn't make too much sense because we're really still sticking with the fleet thing. talked about potentially we've got a third empire on the horizon at some point, but we're going to need to make some major ground to justify that. But the thinking is that, yeah, basically you're not locked into a platoon the way you were with a warband. There's nothing hidden or secret. Everything is still, we're still maintaining our public game channels and such. Although, you saw a few months ago we kind of switched that up a little bit in preparation for this, because now the game channels under games are still all public for everybody, but then the game channels under the Frontier that are all of our real small games or inactive games, you need the player's role to be able to see those. So those are a bit more kind of hidden away, but of course anybody can look at them. You just have to get the game role or get the all games role that lets you see everything. That said, yeah, I think feeling pretty good about the rollout. I've made a few changes, updates to the About WA documentation and such. Most everything should be pretty consistent with the new changes rolling out, but I'm going to do kind of one more pass over About WA and some other stuff just to double check that everything is updated and not outdated and thus confusing. But yeah, I mean, just sort of quick recap. The main thing is you're going to be put into a platoon, and what that is going to mean is that's just an additional role you'll have, and you'll have sort of your platoon lead, and they probably will have a second in command too. Will kind of be the people just keeping track of you. They are to answer any questions, probably running events on the game you play the most if the system is working. That's what we've tried to do. Is we're initially sorting everyone into platoons based on the game you play the most. For some people, it's a bit of a rough fit. If you don't fit into anything, we kind of put you into Thor's Hammer, our general miscellaneous platoon. But we'd like to not just put everybody into that, because obviously that sort of defeats most of the purpose of these changes if we just put everyone back in Thor's Hammer. That's basically what we had before. So instead, what we're trying to do is sort of, push people out into platoons so they sort of have the opportunity to kind of hang out with a more close-knit group of people, and they have a specific person that they know that they can go to, who now has the ability to promote and demote them and kind of do everything they need to do, and has some more responsibilities. I mean, they have to do the roster review, they have to post the situation report, that stuff. So yeah, in a lot of ways, it's really going back to Third Fleet. But yeah, I think the one thing I would say is if there's a specific platoon you want to be part of, feel free to let me know or let any officer know. I mean, we'll just make it happen right now. It's not a problem. It's not going to take days or something. But if you do find out post March 15th, if at some point you want to switch, that's also fine. We just ask then that what you do is you go to the help channel under welcome and you open up a support ticket and just say, and that way we can all see it. We don't need to have 4 officers DMing each other trying to figure out what's going on. We just have one channel shared by everybody, temp channel, where you just say, hey, I want to switch to StarCraft, talk to Teutonic Order or whatever. And of course, the leader of your current platoon and leader of Teutonic Order is already in the channel, and they can just see that and say, okay, great, sure. And we'll just swap your roles, we'll switch you around to the roster, and you're good to go. So it's not a big deal. And even then, as far as transfers, what I've told most of the officers is I don't expect a lot of transfers, because whereas warbands, like I said, that was sort of like switching friend groups, which is sort of a big thing if you think about it in sort of a dramatic high school setting. In this case, you're not locked into anything by being in a certain platoon. Really, the only reason you would switch platoons is if you kind of stop playing the game that platoon is on, or you start playing another platoon's game a lot, or you're just spending more time with a different platoon and you want to switch. And of course, we're just going to say, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, because the ultimate purpose of this system is to help the average WA member more. So we want you to be in the best position possible where it's working the best for you. Hopefully that gives a pretty good summary. I'm going to go ahead and head off for my office hours just after this.